Since the French army first set foot on Algerian soil, the country has been immersed in a sea of blood and tragedy. French policy recognized only the language of oppression and destruction. Colonial France sought not merely to occupy Algeria, but to eliminate an entire people, attempting even to strip them of their national identity in order to realize its colonial project. One example of the crimes inflicted upon Algerians was the massacre carried out against the Algeria tribe. This atrocity was not simply a passing episode of war, but the direct product of France's racist and tyrannical policies in Algeria. The horrific carnage inflicted upon the tribe was another chapter in the crusading military campaign waged by the French authorities, where murder was intertwined with looting, terror, and even the ostentation of the crimes themselves. These brutal acts were not isolated excesses committed by individuals, but rather an expression of the systematic policy of oppression and injustice pursued by France in Algeria. Upon his appointment, de Rovigo wasted no time taking security measures to safeguard the French foothold in Algiers, which at the time was still confined within the city wall. His first step was to secure a protective buffer zone. Several small permanent camps were established, connected by a line of blockhouses stretching from the summit of Bouzeria mountain in the west to the mouth of the Harash River in the east. Along this line stood Del Ibrahim, Qadus, Tikasraïn, Oued Kerma, Affaire Modèle, Guy de Constantine, and La Maison Carrée. This zone became the nucleus of French colonial projects, where the first Pieds Noirs settlers from Europe were encouraged to settle, always at the expense of Algerians. On April 5, 1832, a delegation from Sheikh Farhat bin Said, the chieftain of the Ziban region in southeastern Algeria, arrived in Algiers. They came with a proposal, an alliance with de Rovigo against Ahmed Bey of Constantine, a common enemy to both. The emissaries were well received. De Rovigo showered them with precious gifts. On their return journey, April 6, disaster struck. Near La Maison Carrée, today El Harash, the delegation was ambushed and robbed by marauders. Ironically, this occurred within sight of the 3rd Battalion of the Foreign Legion stationed nearby. The ambush took place on territory belonging to the Algeria tribe, giving de Rovigo the perfect pretext he had long awaited to apply the brutal policy he intended for Algeria. Without even pausing to investigate, Savary ordered the garrison at Maison Carrée to prepare for a surprise assault on Oufia, a tribe that had, until then, lived peacefully under French protection. As Pélissier bluntly remarked,
"It was a violent decision which nothing could justify."
The raid, de Rovigo declared, would punish the tribe for allegedly robbing the emissaries. But there was more. Oufia was also accused of encouraging desertions among Foreign Legion soldiers. Hermann Holber, a German recruit stationed at Maison Carrée, recalled this suspicion.
There was a troubling suspicion that a somewhat powerful and warlike Arab tribe camped in the middle of the Great Plain near Maison Carrée had deliberately encouraged these desertions. It was repeatedly reported that some soldiers had not fled from a distance, nor while on patrol or fetching water, but had been directly enticed by Bedouins under promises while still under the trees near the house.
On the night of April 6, 1832, orders were set in motion. A column composed of several companies of infantry and squadrons of African chasseurs, supported by field cannons, marched out of Algiers. Their mission to join the 3rd Battalion of La Légion étrangère at Maison Carrée and carry out what was chillingly described as a Rovigo-style punishment. In other words, the extermination of defenseless people. Secrecy was essential to conceal the destination of the expedition and prevent any warning from reaching Oufia. Soldiers were kept entirely in the dark. They were told nothing of their mission until departure. and strict orders were given to maintain silence throughout the march.
By dawn on April 7th,
the French forces arrived on the edge of the unsuspecting Oufia encampment. Before them lay a sleeping tribe, unaware that annihilation was only moments away. The first shots came from the cannons. Explosive blasts tore through the camp, sending tents, possessions, and bodies into chaos. The African chasseurs circled around the left flank to complete the encirclement, while on the right, a swamp cut off any chance of escape. Panic gripped the camp. Women, children, and the elderly fled from their burning tents, wailing in terror. Some men managed to seize weapons, others leapt onto horses to seek help from neighboring tribes. But most were helpless. As confusion spread, the infantry advanced in disciplined platoon fire, while the cavalry pressed in to cut off the fleeing. The victims were trapped on three sides, and on the fourth, the swamp. Desperate men, women, and children waded into the mud and weeds, seeking shelter, but the French showed no mercy. Musket fire cut them down as they struggled in the water. Some sank and suffocated, others were shot where they stood. Those who remained in the camp were cut down with sabers and bayonets. No quarter was given. As Herman Hauber, who was present that morning, recalled,
"The orders were simple: to carry out a Rovigo-style punishment on the Oufia tribe."
This was no battle, it was an extermination.